Hello guys, can you please write in the chat if you can hear me and see me? Hi, Ladonna. Yes, okay, great. Okay, so we can wait 1-2 minutes for the audience to come. I know that many people will watch later and it is totally fine, of course. So just 1 minute. Okay, and I would like to explain something. So I will ask you to start with something which is really special. This is not something I have invented. This is something I have learned from my best teachers. And it is to start each lecture or seminar or an important event with a little, very short meditation and concentration. And I will explain why until we are waiting for the other people to join us, or even for those who are watching later. I still encourage you to make this very short concentration with all of us. And the reason is this. So you know that Mercury is related to with our mind, and this is about the simple stuff. And on the other hand, in order to understand spiritual knowledge and astrology especially, we need Uranus. But sometimes Mercury and Uranus, you know, they may not work very well together. So what we want to do is actually to silence a little bit the Mercury mind, or as they say, the monkey mind, or, you know, this ordinary stuff that we are thinking about, and to be able actually to open our minds for Uranus, for the higher energy and for the important stuff that we can receive, which are on a different level. So I hope it makes sense to you guys. And hi, Marina. And by the way, today we know that Mercury is retrograde. It was, you know, a risky one, but I think that everything worked very well so far. And the great thing is that actually Mercury is in a positive aspect with Uranus today, exact trine. And that's why I think that this webinar will be extremely beneficial. I hope it will be interesting and helpful. And okay, so if you're ready, and by the way, Mercury retrograde is very good for self-analysis, and that's the main point of this webinar. So we are going to discuss how to interpret your own charts. So I think that Mercury retrograde will help you guys to look inside yourself, to realize some important stuff about your horoscope and especially about your future. So let's hope that Mercury will support us. And in this very short meditation, what I want you to do is actually to try stop thinking about, you know, your laundry or what you have to do on Monday, all kinds of obligations and small stuff. Just stop thinking about it. Maybe you can, you know, imagine the sky and the stars or some kind of signboard that you like or whatever it is, but just, you know, try to calm your mind. So if you're ready, please type in the chat if you hear me, if everything is okay. Okay. Okay, so that's great. Okay, so now just what I want you to do is to close your eyes and to, you know, stop thinking about the other stuff around you and just, you know, to try to connect with each other. So let's begin. It's very, very short. Okay, so when you're ready, you can open your eyes and we can begin. So again, welcome to everyone. It's so nice to be able to talk to you this evening for me, maybe morning for most of you. And we have so many interesting stuff to talk about. Before that, just to explain about the personal charts. As you know, this webinar comes with a 5-year personal chart, which is calculated for you. So it's not computer generated. I do it personally. And that's why, as you can understand, it takes time. And some of you have already received their charts. Those of you who sent me their details during the past 1-2 days will need to wait. I promise that everyone will get their personal chart during next week. The other thing is, of course, if you haven't sent me your birth details, I can't calculate your chart. So please send the information to my email. And you don't have to send it to Lada. Please send it to my email. If you don't know it, it's stoichkovamarina@gmail.com. So please, guys, send me your details there if you haven't yet. And there were some issues. I think it was some people complained that they couldn't read everything in the chart. I think it's the difference in the different versions of Microsoft Office we are using. And of course, we know Mercury is retrograde, so it's normal. And I think that maybe the Mac users had problems with that because I'm a Windows user. But anyway, if you have problems, just send me an email and I will send a PDF, which is actually the better choice. And from now on, all of the charts will be in a PDF format because it looks like it's working better for everyone. So if there are any problems with your charts, again, please send me an email to stoichkovamarina@gmail.com. Okay, so I think we can begin now. Of course, I will show you how this PDF looks like, so you will know what to expect, of course, how to interpret all of that. And finally, of course, we are going to have a Q&A, so you will be able to ask me your questions. Okay, so first of all, the heliacal phases. What's the meaning of that? The main idea is that we, hello to everyone again, yes. So the main idea is that we analyze the position of the planets according to the sun. And first of all, we are talking about the visible planets. So in this analysis, we can include only Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And of course the sun, but the sun is always visible, as you can guess. And the outer planets are not included. So Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are not included because they are always invisible. And so, as I said, the main thing that we analyze is the visibility of your planets. One of the main rules is that when a planet is very close to the sun, it becomes invisible. Of course, we're talking about from our perspective. So if you're watching from the Earth, but that's the most important actually. But there is no general rule. So I cannot give you an exact, for example, orbits which you can analyze. In some cases, it could be different. So in some cases, if your, let's say, Saturn is 30 degrees from the sun, it could be invisible, and in the other cases it could be visible. So there are some differences. There is no general rule about the orbits. That's why we need to look at the chart of everyone separately. Okay, and as you may guess, the sun, of course, is always visible. That's why the place where you have Leo in your horoscope is very special. And this is the place where everything should be more stable. And in most of the cases, it should be more positive. Especially for those who have their ascendant in Leo, you're lucky guys, definitely. Okay, and let me remind you, of course, the rulership of the planets in case that somebody has forgotten. So Aries is ruled by Mars, Venus is ruling Taurus, Mercury rules Gemini, the Moon rules Cancer, the Sun rules Leo, then Mercury rules Virgo, Venus rules Libra, Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, Jupiter the ruler of Sagittarius, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, Aquarius is also ruled by Saturn, and finally Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. So this is very important because we need to find out actually, first we analyze, of course, the phases of your planets, and every planet has its own meaning and interpretation. But after that comes the analysis of the house which is ruled by this planet, because this is the life area which will be influenced by this planet, by the phases, by the visibility. So that's extremely important. And well, okay, first I will say a few words about each of the planets, and then I can show you an example of this chart so we can go by each of the details and discuss the meaning. So let me just open my document here. And I think that most of the things you already know, but that's just a very brief reminding of the meaning of the planets. So the moon is related to our family and our home, the place where we are living. It's important for having children and for settling down. Mercury is about education and traveling and communicating with people. It's related with our mind and yeah, with all kinds of connections. Venus is related to love and marriage and emotional connections to others, and also with money. Don't forget about that. Mars is related to activeness and action and taking risks and being more independent. Sometimes it could be related with the need to, you know, lead some battles, to fight for something, also a Mars topic. Then Jupiter is about, of course, first of all, about education, especially higher education. And also it's related to growth and social recognition and success and in some cases even spiritual development. Of course, it's not about each person because not everyone is interested in that. But if you are interested in spiritual development, then Jupiter is really important. Then Saturn is the planet which is related to career and responsibilities and obligations, but also with your social status and your results. And basically for career, Saturn is extremely important. Okay, so this is the first meaning. So let's say that you find out that your Venus is invisible. The first thing which comes to your mind is that it might be a difficult period for your love life and opportunities to have a relationship, especially if you want to make it official, if you want to make it, you know, something which is structured, let's say. But then you have to analyze which house in your horoscope is ruled by Venus, because in this area you will also feel the influence of the planet. So that's very important to remember. And let me show you. So now I will share my screen, and I will show you, by the way, the chart of Lada. Of course, I have her permission, so it will be as an example for us to see how to read this chart. So let me just see how I can share my screen. Okay, so I think it's sharing right now. So please just type in the chat if you can see my screen. And of course, hello to everyone who joined us later. Okay, great. So you can see my screen. So thank you very much. All right, so this is the horoscope of Lada. We are going to use it as an example. Some of you already have these charts. As I said, those who still don't have the charts will definitely get it. So of course, first you will find your birth details, then you will find your personal horoscope. This is the traditional chart using the tropical zodiac and the Placidus house system. So it's important. Many of you, I believe, know their own charts, but in case that you don't, you can check it here. Then comes a very short explanation about the meaning of the planets, or actually which areas are related, which life areas are related usually with the planets, which is general for all of us. So as I said, Venus for everyone is related to love and marriage. And Jupiter is always related to education and spiritual development. It could be, I mean. So here you can find this information. And then you will find, as I said, for your personal horoscope, which house is ruled by certain planets. So in the case of Lada, her ascendant is in Aquarius, so it means that Saturn is the ruler of first house. I told you about the rulership of the planets. I think that most of you know that as well. And actually here I have written the house, a very short description just to remind you what's related with that house. And you can read it here. Maybe we can say just a few words about those who have forgotten maybe. And first house is extremely important. It's about your, basically it's also known, it's also known as your ascendant. And it's about everything that you do. So the ruler of your ascendant is probably the most important planet in your horoscope. And if you want to do something to be more independent, to be more active, to start something important, it's very nice if the ruler of your horoscope. So as I said, everyone will get this chart. I see that someone asks in the chat. Everyone will have their personal charts. If you don't have it yet, you will have it during next week. I promise you that. So let's return to Lada's chart. And okay, so the ascendant is extremely important about everything that you do, and you need to analyze the ruler of your ascendant in order to understand if this is a beneficial time for starting new things, or you will have the opportunity to be more independent. Extremely important. Then the second house is about all kinds of resources, including money, but not only, and also your energy, like physical energy. You can see that second house here is ruled by Jupiter. Then third house is about education, traveling, and friends, and your communication on a daily basis. So who you meet daily. It's like your neighbors, or maybe brothers and sisters. Then comes fourth house, one of the really important houses in the horoscope, which is related to your family and home and the place where you are living and property issues. Then fifth house is related to your love life and children and creativity and art. But especially for your love life, this is a very important house. Then comes sixth house, which is mostly about work and all kinds of, responsibilities, obligations, duties. Also, it's related to your health and the people that you work together with. Seventh house, the other really important and positive house, It's about your relationships, marriage, including business partnerships, but especially if you want to have a romantic relationship, if you want to get married, 7th house is extremely important. Then 8th house is about mutual resources, money coming from other people, and also your investments. Or if you want to take a credit, 8th house is what you need to analyze. Then 9th house is about high education. It's also about your spiritual growth, about your belief system, and about long-term traveling or long-distance traveling. For immigration, 9th house is really important. 10th house, I would say the second most important house after the ascendant, so extremely important. And it's about your career, your vocation, your social realization. And 11th house, it's about groups of people who have similar interests like you. So they share your ideas. This is a very interesting house. And also it's about, of course, friendships. And finally, 12th house, one of the most complicated houses together with 8th house, water houses, especially 12th house is related to isolation, and it could be related also to spiritual development or some self-analysis or the past and your karma. So a very deep house, very complicated as well. And of course, for immigration, this is also important. So as I said, in your own charts, you will find which house is ruled, so which planet is ruling certain houses. And here is something important to mention. So some of you will notice that you have more than one ruler of certain houses. And if that's the case, it means that you have intercepted houses. Let me show you. In Lada's case, you won't find it because she doesn't have intercepted houses, in my opinion. Okay, I will show you my chart here. It's because I have intercepted houses. So here is my 4th house. You can see that I have Virgo here on the cusp. And the next house, 5th house, is in Scorpio. So Libra, the sign Libra, it's like locked in my 4th house. And it means that that's what actually the interception is. They're always in pairs. So if you have one intercepted sign and house, the opposite is always intercepted as well. You can find here, Aries is intercepted in my 10th house. So if you have intercepted houses, like in my case, it means that you have 2 rulers of the house. So in my case, 4th house will be ruled by Mercury and Venus as well. And my 10th house is ruled by Jupiter and Mars as well. So that's really important because the interception of the houses is a very interesting topic and long topic. So I won't go really deep into that because we can make a whole webinar about it, literally. The main idea is that usually there are some complications in the area of the houses, which are ruled by this planet, which are related to this house. And the reason is because there is kind of a double motivation. Yeah, Lada is watching together with us. So we have a double motivation. The fact that you have 2 rulers of certain house means that things are changing. And very often there is like unconscious motivation that you may not be aware of. And very often when the older you get, the more you can realize the intercepted house sign and you can use it. Anyway, as I said, very interesting but long topic. So I'm just explaining that in case you are wondering why you have 2 planets next to certain house. Okay. And of course, it means that you have to analyze the phases of both of the planets. They are both going to have an impact on your life. And yeah, it makes things more complicated, more difficult, you know, to understand, but that's just what your horoscope is. And I can assure you from my own experience, it's more difficult, especially if you have intercepted planets in the houses. That's something you need to pay attention on. All right, so let me share the screen again. Okay, it should be, just let me open the chat here. Okay, so we talked about the planets, and as I said, I'm using the Placidus house system. In my opinion, this is the most accurate. Of course, if you're using the equal house system, you can't have intercepted houses and signs, which makes the chart more different. It's just what I prefer to use. Okay. So next, what you will find in this personal document that you all are going to receive. These are the phases of the moon. Then you have the phases of, yes, somebody says they have this. That's the meaning, guys. Okay, so you have the phases of the moon, then the phases of Mercury and Venus. I will talk about it in a little bit. Then Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The reason why all of these are grouped in this way is because they have similar cycles. We are going to talk about each of the cycles, but just let me show you this. Next in the chart, you will find the birth status of the planets in your horoscope. So in Lada's case, you will find that the moon is visible, Mercury is not visible, Venus not, Mars is not, Jupiter and Saturn are visible. So all of you will have it. So what it means, I think you can guess what it is, but just to explain, it means whether the planets have been visible or not when you were born. And that's something extremely important. That's why I have included this information here. Then you will find this short explanation about the methods for prediction. So first of all, of course, we analyze the natal status of the planets in your horoscope, but then this is something which changes over the time. Of course, you will always have, like Lada will always have Venus invisible in her horoscope, but we also need to find if in the predictions this will change, because it kind of changes the interpretation. So here are the three methods which are used. And if you are familiar with the methods of the progressions, I think that many of you have heard about this. That's what I have explained here. And there are three types of progressions. 1 day equals 1 year. So what it means is actually that we need to analyze, for example, if we want to find out what's happening when you are 20 years old, we need to find the exact position of the planets on the 20th day after you were born. I think that you can understand that. It's basically a very popular method. Of course, you can analyze many things in the progressions, but in this case, we are talking only specifically about the heliacal phases. So the first method is 1 day equals 1 year, or this is also called the secondary progressions. The next method is 1 day equals 1 month. These are the tertiary progressions. And the last one is when 1 month equals 1 year. Honestly, I don't think that this method has its own name like the secondary progressions, but it's not important. And of course, you need to pay attention on the color. As you might guess, the green one is the most important. This is the basic method. Then the red one is the next, which is important. And finally, the blue method is has the least importance. So that's just how things are. And then you will find this table in the chart where we are actually, you will find the exact status of the planets according to the three methods. So, for example, in Lada's case, you can see that Venus is already visible, as you will find here in the birth status. Her Mercury, Venus, and Mars are invisible. But the next thing we need to find out is if they have already became visible, because they might have or they might have not. And it's different for everyone. So first we watch at the green row. Okay, and we see that Mercury is visible right now, Venus is visible, and only Mars is not visible. And of course, the other rows are also important, but as I said, the first thing you need to analyze is the green, then comes the red, and finally the blue one. So this is what we are starting with right now. So this is for December, what is this, 2017, or if you order this later, of course, it will be about the current moment when you have ordered this analysis. You will find where you are starting from. So here it is. All right, and next comes the table with the explanation of basically about the phases during each year. And here we can start with the analysis of the cycles of each of the planets. Just a second. Okay. I can also show you the software which I'm using. And by the way, unfortunately, you can't calculate this on your own. It's really complicated, and I don't think that anyone actually can do that manually. You have to calculate it with a software, which unfortunately I cannot tell you where you can buy from, because I have bought it here in my country, and I doubt that it's you know, possible to access, but maybe it is. I'm really not sure. But that's why, guys, you're getting these personal calculations so that you have it. We are going to talk about each of the planets in a minute. Okay, so yeah, I can show you actually here the software. Do we use, okay, we can use Lada's actually. We have her permission. Okay, here she is, just to check. Okay, this is her chart. And this is where we are analyzing those phases. I will explain everything, but keep in mind this is a really advanced technique. You don't have to remember everything. You will find it in your own chart. So let's start with Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars, because as I told you, they have very similar cycles. This is basically, here is the method. You will find it here. 1 day equals 1 year. Here, if I choose this option, this is 1 day equals 1 month. And this option will show you 1 month equals 1 year. And here, this arrow or whatever it is showing the current phase of the planet. And look how it's changing. According to this method, Saturn is here in this part. According to the other, it's here. And according to the third, it's here. So now I will explain about each of the phases. And I will show you how it's moving actually in dynamics. So maybe you saw that the phases are moving here according to the clock, so in this direction. And the first phase is here MF, or it means morning first. So this is the phase when the planet becomes visible. Then in this part here, the planet during this whole period, it's visible. Let me show you how we can move it. Okay, here it's for the next year. Then there are three phases which are always very close to each other. AR and CS, this is kind of the beginning and the end of this whole period. And OPP, this is basically the opposition. So what is interesting is that when the planet is here in this part of the cycle, so that's true for Saturn and Jupiter and Mars, as I told you. So here the magnitude of the planet is really strong. So it's shining really bright. And that's why this is the time when you can achieve some material results in the areas which are related to the planet and in the houses which are ruled by this planet. Yes, Lada is joining us. Yes, that's why we have to use this software. And of course, we provide these personal calculations. So as I told you guys, here Saturn, when Saturn is here on the MF, it becomes visible. Then during this whole part, it is visible. And here comes the kind of like the culmination of the cycle, AR, OPP, and CSS. Let me show you here, for example, in the chart of Lada. For next year, she has her Saturn. In this phase according to the blue method. In October, she has this AR phase. Then in January and July come the other phases. And this is like a whole period. So if you find this in anywhere in the chart, AR, OPP, and CS, this is the culmination of the cycle of this planet. And Mars and Jupiter also have similar cycles, so that's true for these planets as well. But as I said, the planet is still visible, and actually it's shining really bright. Then the planet continues in this direction, and it is still visible until it comes here. I'm not sure if you can read it very well. They're very close. Here it says EL, or this is also evening last. So this is the last time when the planet is visible. So after that, the planet will become invisible. Of course, for Lada, it happens in 2024. Saturn will become invisible. So if you find anywhere in the chart, okay, here we don't have it. Okay, her Venus will become invisible, but anyway, it's very similar. If you find anywhere in the chart AML or EL, it means that the planet is becoming invisible. And by the way, here at the very beginning of this table, you can find all of these things. You will find here are for Saturn, so MF or morning first, when the planet becomes visible. Here AR, OPP, and CR are basically the culmination or the opposition. Evening last, and then comes the conjunction. Here you will find it, or let me show you here in the software. It's here in this part, the conjunction. So as you can guess, this is the time when Saturn, or the certain planet we are analyzing, is in conjunction with the Sun. And the main idea is that when the planet is invisible, it's more challenging for you to manifest things on a material level. And in this situation, if we are talking about Saturn, it's always related to career and stability, and maybe some structures that you might be part of. And after that, you need to find which houses are ruled by this planet. So in this case, for Lada, it rules her ascendant and also her 12th house. So yeah, it's not so important about the 12th house, but the ascendant is really important. So this is the life area which will be influenced by the planet. Somebody asked, is this phase until it becomes visible again in a future year? You will find that in the table. So as I said here, first we analyze the current position. So in Laden's case, Saturn visible according to the three methods. Then if you don't find anything in this color in the column of the planet, for example, there isn't anything in green. So it means that Saturn will remain visible until the end of this period. Then about the red one, we see that according to this method, Saturn is visible. Okay, and we are searching here. Is there anything in red in the table? There isn't. So it means that until the end of 2022, Saturn will be visible during the whole period. Then we look for the blue one, visible again. Okay, and here comes some phases. They are Saturn is still visible, and actually it is in the culmination, the opposition part of the cycle. So again, I repeat that first you need to find out whether you are going to whether you have a visible or invisible planet, and then you need to find out what's happening. Okay, somebody said how close a planet should be around the sun so it could be invisible. As I told you, it's different in the different cases. That's why I can't give you an exact orbit to search for. It could be different for the different planets during the different years, as I already said. All right, so next guys, I will continue with my explanations, and then I will answer your questions. Okay, so we talked about Saturn. Then we have Jupiter. As you can see, Jupiter has a very similar cycle. It's MF is the phase when Jupiter becomes visible. Then this is the culmination part, AR, OPP, and CSS. Then until the EL, until the evening last, Jupiter is visible, and only in this part of the chart, Jupiter is invisible. Okay, what it means, Annabelle is asking, what does it mean if there is nothing in the box? It says that it means there are no phases. Yes, that's what it means. For example, it means that you have to watch first the current status of the planet, and it means that nothing will change during this 5-year period. So let's say in Lada's case, Jupiter is visible according to the three methods. And if there wasn't anything in this column, it means that during this whole period, Jupiter will be still visible according to all of the methods. And there are also no other phases like the oppositions or the conjunctions. So if you don't find anything in this column, you have to return here to this part. And that's what this whole 5-year period will be for you. Okay, so here is Jupiter, which we already said that it has a very similar cycle. Then Mars, you will find it's very similar as well. Again, we have the morning phase when Mars will become visible. Here the culmination part. Then comes the evening last, or the time when Mars will become invisible. And the conjunction is the time when there is the Sun is in conjunction with Mars. So again, you need to watch here in your own table And as we will find in Lada's case, Mars is invisible according to the first method, according to the secondary progressions. And here there is nothing in green, so it means that by the end of 2022, Mars will be still invisible. We have nothing in red here, so it means that Mars will be visible during this whole period and by the end of the period as well. And it has only one, now basically there are 3 phases, but as I said, they are part of a one overall period, which is during 2019. Then we have Venus, and the cycles of Venus and Mercury are different. Okay, so here is the cycle of Venus. Just pay attention here on this table and you will see that it's different from the cycle of Mars. This is Mars and this is Venus. So again, some of the phases are similar and there are some other phases. We have MF. This is the morning first, or the time when the planet becomes visible or it rises. Then we have ME, or this is also morning elongation. It's like, it's the culmination for Venus, or this is the time when Venus is shining really bright, and this is the time when you can achieve something really positive in your life in the areas related to Venus, so about your personal life and relationships and marriage. And on the second place, of course, in the houses which are ruled by Venus in your horoscope. So morning elongation, I repeat again, this is a very positive phase. Then comes ML, or again the morning last phase, which is the time when the planet will become invisible. So in Lada's case, we can find that there is this phase, we can find it. In May 2018, Venus will become invisible. And to make it easier for you, actually, if certain planet is becoming visible or invisible, you will find it here in the brackets under the phase. So just to make it easier, again, you will find the same information here at the beginning of the chart. But just to make it easier, you find it here as well. So during May 2018, Venus has this phase ML, which means that it becomes invisible or not visible, as you prefer. And, okay, sorry, this is my Viber, sorry. Okay, just a second, I'm not sure how to. Okay, anyway, somebody's typing. What was I saying? Okay, so yeah, Venus becomes invisible during May. And then comes this is the conjunction, superior conjunction. It means that the Sun and Venus are in conjunction. Venus is still invisible, but this is a very positive phase. So it's the closest that you can have during to the visibility. It's like the most positive time during the invisible period, let's say it in this way. And something really positive might happen, or especially on an inner level, because the planet is invisible. And then in 2021, during September, Venus will become visible evening first. This phase means evening first. And you will notice here that basically for Venus, and Mercury is even more complicated, but for Venus, there are 2 invisible phases. Okay, here you can see it. We have ML, which is the morning class when Venus becomes invisible, and then on EF or evening first, Venus will become visible. Then we have the evening elongation, EE. It's similar to the ME. So we have a morning elongation and an evening elongation. And this is the culmination of the cycle of the planet. Yes, yes, that's what it means. So if you find anywhere in your chart a phase under which you read not visible, it means that the planet will remain invisible until the time you find the visible period. For some people, it might be after the 2022. So yeah, it's different for everyone. But if you find this phase, May, or whatever month it is, ML, or the planet becomes invisible, it will remain invisible until the EF. So it's not like Venus will be invisible only during May. It means that after that time, it will be invisible for a certain amount of time, which is different. Let me return here. So yeah, the most important for Venus is actually to remember that MF and EF are the really positive phases. So it's like the new beginning for your emotional life, for your personal life, for your relationships, and of course for the house, which is for the life area, which is related to the house rulership. The other really positive phases are ME and EE, the elongations, morning elongation, evening elongation. This is the culmination or the time when you can achieve, some success, something visible, especially on an emotional level, especially about your personal life. But actually, if Venus is ruling, let's say, your sixth house, if you have a positive phase of Venus, it means that it's not only about your personal life and opportunity for a serious relationship, but it's also positive for your career. So this is something which is personal for everyone. So that's the most important for the cycle of Venus, as I said. The time when it becomes visible and the elongations. These are the two really important phases when things can change significantly in your life. And the invisible phase, it's the time when things may not work very well. There might be some complications, or especially on a material level, it might be difficult actually to achieve some results. All right, then comes the cycle of Mercury. And Mercury has the most complicated and how to say that, different cycle. By the way, most of the people have their Mercury invisible in the horoscope. And when I say most, it's like maybe 70 or even 80% of the people have invisible Mercury. And if you have a visible Mercury, this is something exceptional. And if you have all of the planets visible in your horoscope, this is something extremely rare. There were a few people in the charts I already calculated who are lucky to have all of their planets visible in your birth chart, which is something great. And for Mercury, as I said, most of us have an invisible Mercury. And well, the interesting part is that the cycle can be really different. By the way, somebody asked me how come Mercury is invisible when it is like something like 14 or 15 degrees away from my sun. Yes, it is possible. With Mercury, the cycles are completely different. So this is how the normal Mercury cycle looks when it's a regular and good cycle. Just to show you how it can change, this one is good as well. Okay, this is another cycle. This is again Mercury, but look how different the phases look. Basically here during the whole cycle, Mercury will be invisible. This is only to show you that Mercury is really unpredictable. Here again comes a very weird cycle of Mercury. But this is the normal, the positive cycle. Again, we have morning first. When the Mercury rises, it becomes visible. Then we have evening. We have also evening first. And this is also the time when the planet will become visible during the evening. And there are two phases when it's invisible, ML and EL, so morning last and evening last. And there are two elongations as well, evening elongation and morning elongation. So this is the culmination, and this is the time when you can achieve positive results. And also when the planet becomes visible, it's extremely positive period for you. But as I said, in many cases, you may find that, for example, Mercury doesn't have any or not so many. Some people have, like a few phases during each year, specifically for Mercury. And there are others, for example, in Lada's case, who doesn't have. So it means that, the situation remains almost the same during this period, according to this method. Okay, and sorry, I just picked someone else. Okay, and then we have the moon. The moon also has a very different, its own cycle. Here we are analyzing only the two cycles, I mean the secondary and the tertiary progressions, because the other one is not really working. And this time actually we are looking in the opposite direction. So NC is the time, and these are some Latin abbreviations. I will explain what they mean. NC is the time when your moon will become visible. AR and CS is the full moon, basically, the opposition between the sun and the moon. And LC is the time when the moon becomes invisible. And during this part, so after the LC, let me show you in Lada's chart. Okay, here in August 2018, the moon becomes invisible. And then in November, it's visible again. And then during 2019, she has a progressed full moon. And then these phases repeat in 2021 and 2022. And it means that, first of all, during this period, something in terms of her family and home could change, because that's related to the basic meaning of the moon. And also because the moon rules her 6th house, it could be an important phase or period about her career. So we can recommend from this chart, we can recommend her that next year, between August and November, she shouldn't undertake some important business initiatives or start business projects, because the moon, which is the ruler of her 6th house, is invisible. On the other hand, when she has a full moon during 2019, AR and CS, during this time, there might be like a materialization of some projects, especially some career projects, because, as we said, the moon is ruling her 6th house. And so you will find that in her chart, there is nothing in green. So according to the secondary progressions, nothing has changed. If there is something which is in green color in this personal chart that you have, it means that it's the most important. But not actually, only a few people have these phases. Then if you have something in red, it's also important. And as I said, the blue one is again important, but not so influencing. In some cases, here we can't find it in this horoscope, but there are people who have, for example, during during the same period a few phases of certain planet according to different methods. Let's say that here, for example, in 2019, we have Venus, for example, rising according to the blue method, and at the same time there is an elongation according to the red method. Or it doesn't matter what the combination is. It makes the period even more important. You can expect some significant events in the area of the planet around this time. If you have, phases according to the different methods during the same period. Somebody says, don't start business projects when the moon is invisible. Yes, that's what I'm saying. This is about Lada's horoscope. If you want to, for example, let's talk about concrete life areas. Let's say that you are interested about your personal life and maybe you want to have a relationship or even to get married. What to look for? First of all, you have to analyze your Venus. So is Venus visible in your horoscope? If it is visible in the birth chart, that's great. Then you look here in this table. Okay, is Venus visible according to the three methods? And then, of course, you analyze these phases. What will change during this 5-year period? Then what you need to analyze is also the ruler of your 5th house and the ruler of your 7th house. Let's look at Vlada's chart. Okay, she has Leo on the cusp of 7th house, so the sun, we already said that it's always visible. 5th house is ruled by her Mercury. She has Gemini on the cusp of 5th house. So when there are positive phases of Mercury, which we can't find here in this period, but if there were some positive phases of Mercury, we can say that this is also a very positive period for her love life, because Mercury is ruling her 5th house. So I repeat again, if you are interested in your love life, you need to analyze Venus and the ruler of your 5th and especially the ruler of 7th house. Are they visible? And what's happening during the years? So if you have an elongation phase, if you have a rising of the planet, you find it here, visible or not visible. Now, this is the time when something really, can manifest on a material level for you. If you're in a dark phase or the planet is invisible, it's more difficult for, these events to happen. If we are talking about let's say money. If you want to analyze what's happening in your finances, in the area of finances, first of all, you can check again Venus. Don't forget that Venus is the ruler of Taurus as well. So that's why it's related to material stuff. So again, you can analyze if Venus is visible, if there are some positive phases or some challenging phases. And after that, you need to find the ruler of 2nd house. Okay, so you can look at the chart or you can find it here written. In Lada's case, Jupiter is the ruler of 2nd house. So when there are phases of Jupiter, like in her case, we can find it in 2020 and 2021, she has this culmination phase of Jupiter. This is the time when, she can achieve a very significant financial success in her life, because this phase is positive and because Jupiter is ruling her 2nd house. So that's how you actually work with that. Let's talk about career. So if you're interested in, the area of your career, of course, Saturn is always related to that, and also the ruler of your 6th and 10th house. Lada has Scorpio on the cusp of 10th house, which means that we need to analyze Mars, and also we already said the moon. So when there are phases of Mars and the Moon and Saturn, because it's traditionally related, something really important might happen in this area. If we are talking about Saturn, okay, here in 2018 and 2019, Saturn is in the culmination phase. So we can say that this will be a very successful period for Lada in terms of her career, but at the same time, it will be related to serious responsibilities and obligations and hard work. But with Saturn, and this is the ruler of her ascendant, of course, this is how things will work for her. It will come with serious efforts and work and patience and all the Saturn qualities which are needed. But this is the main idea. 2018 and 19 are really important. And in 2019, we also find that Mars has basically the same phases, the culmination phase, the opposition between the Sun and Mars. So the magnitude is really high. That's why the planet is shining really bright on the sky from an astronomical point of view. That's why you can materialize something in your life. So in Lada's case, it's about her career and her, social realization. Let's say that Venus is ruling your 10th house. If you're interested in career opportunities, then analyze the phases of Venus in your horoscope, because it will show you which periods are positive, and especially it's about starting new initiatives. Let's say if you want to have start your own business, then you should find if you find actually a positive phase of the ruler of your 10th house or 6th house, this is the best time to start these business projects. If you are interested in learning, for example, if let's say that you want to start some kind of new education, again, you need to find the ruler of your 9th house. And then when there are positive phases of the ruler during these years, this is the best time for you to achieve success in this area. Things should be more positive for you, and it's more on a material level. That's the main idea. And of course, Jupiter is always related to higher education, so you need to analyze Jupiter as well. So I can, if you have some questions, you can ask right now. Let me stop this for. Is it clear, guys?
Hi. Sorry to interrupt. I have a question.
Yes.
What happens when a planet is invisible? What you say, the outer things don't manifest, but what can we say invisible Venus? What internal can we for each planet when it's invisible?
When the planet is invisible, it means that you can work on an inner level. So let's say for Venus, we can talk about, let's say that you are an artist, or if your work is related in some way to Venus, then this is a great time actually to when you can get more inspired. Some things can happen, but they are more on an inner level. So, for example, you can prepare some stuff, especially when there is a conjunction between the planet and the sun. And you will find that in the table if you have this phase. This is a great time when you can have these new ideas about what you would like to start, because the invisible phase is kind of the ending phase of certain period. And after that, when the planet becomes visible, you can start to, achieve all of this stuff on a material level.
So it's like a preparation phase.
Yes, yes. This is the time when you can prepare.
So even for love, when your Venus is invisible, you might be taking classes and reading about relationships and kind of like
Yes,
that. Okay.
yes, yes, exactly.
And when
Um,
Saturn is invisible, what would people like? Would they have less structure or?
when Saturn is invisible, this is the time when you have to kind of, discipline yourself. You need to take more responsibilities, especially when there is a conjunction between the Sun and Saturn. So if you want to achieve some stability or career success, this is the time to plan everything, to structure, to organize, but it comes with hard work.
Mm-hmm. And some people might have the whole life Saturn invisible with the green method, which is the
Mm-hmm.
most important one, isn't it? And
yeah.
but when this happens, can they instead, because it means that they'll never have career success, but at least to see when the ruler of the 10th house becomes visible, so they compensate with that,
Yes.
because it might be a different
Yeah.
planet.
Yes, it can help them actually to, if they concentrate on that planet. It could be Mercury, for others it could be Jupiter, it doesn't matter. This is the planet which you need to, analyze. This is the planet which will show you the best periods for you to achieve success. And
So
when
yeah.
you can start different things, or it's just not only about what you are planning to start, but also the circumstances are much more positive for you.
So you might have invisible Venus, say for a few years, but if the ruler of the 7th house is visible, you still have a chance to have a relationship.
Yes, yes. As I said, if we want to analyze the area of relationships and marriage, you have to analyze Venus and also the ruler of your 7th house. So if both of them are visible, this is great. If some of them or both of them are in a positive phase, this is extremely positive opportunity for relationship and marriage. And if one of the planets is visible and the other is invisible, it's a mixed situation. So you can have this relationship, but things might be complicated. And actually, we find this happening in your life very often. For example, you can fall in love, but things are not so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Certain, similar situations are possible.
And then the green one is the most important. So people that have it all visible, they're very lucky in the green one. But if you happen, because the green one changes the least often, it's the one that will it's the most rare. But if it happens that you have the red or the blue one become visible, you can kind of a bit compensate if a green one is invisible, yeah? Because the green one can be invisible for years and years and years.
Yes, then you just have to find, the best time that will come. Even if in the green, according to the green method, it's invisible. If in the other methods there is a positive phase, then it's, something positive can manifest for you. Or, as I said, if there are positive phases according to more than one method, this is an extremely exceptional period for you.
Wow,
and it doesn't happen to everyone, or at least it won't happen during this 5-year period that we have analyzed, but it's again, it's exceptional.
So maybe that's why my life is so well now, because most of the planets are visible with all the methods. It's kind of what I saw, at least from what you showed, because everything is aligned so perfect in my life. I wonder every day, and I thank God, because before that was nightmare for years.
Yes, we can show actually with your Mars. I think it was really interesting, right? And we have talked about it, that when Mars has become visible in your horoscope, basically this is the time when you have started your own business.
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
I think, yeah.
So yeah, in 2010 you have this.
Yes, that's when I started my business. Because Mars rules my
Just
career, isn't it? I think something
yeah,
like that.
Mars rules your career. Let me show you. So this is again Lada's chart, and this is 2010. So you can see that at the very beginning of 2010.
That's exactly when I got my first order, the beginning of
Okay,
2000.
so you can see, yeah, Mars is in the morning first, so Mars becomes visible according one of the methods, and according the other method, it's in the culmination. So that's the case when I talked, when you have, according to the two methods, you have phases of the same planet. This is a very positive time, so that's why, your business was so successful and everything worked so well for you.
Wow,
That's
it shows so correct.
that.
But the green method Mars is invisible probably till the end of my
Yeah, but
life.
you see that it's compensated.
Yeah.
It's just compensated.
Wow. So you
Saturn
can
is
still
visible,
make,
which
yeah.
is important. Yeah. So we can say that somebody asked about the Leo ascendant, that they're lucky. They are lucky because the sun will always be visible. It's always visible, and in some way, you're. There are not so many changes, and you are more able to manifest some personal, goals. On the other hand, we can say that Virgo and Gemini can bring some complications. Of course, we all have Virgo and Gemini somewhere in the horoscope, and if our Mercury is invisible, this is the area where things might be changing frequently. For example, in my case, Mercury is ruling my 4th house, and I have changed my home so many times. I have even divorced, and that's the nature of Mercury. That's really important. It's just it's changing, and it's not predictable. For example, the moon also changes frequently the phase, but it's like a regular phase. You can predict it. With Mercury, as I showed you, the cycles are so different, and Mercury can be invisible for a very long time, and it's different for everyone.
You said 70% of the time it's usually invisible.
Or even more, yeah, 70 or even 80%.
I've noticed that people with Virgo or Gemini ascendant, often their life takes off later or something like that. It's kind of, maybe
Yes.
It's when the planet becomes visible only, or at certain periods only.
Yeah, the phases of Mercury will be very important. So especially if you want to do something in the area of Mercury, let's say that you want to be a public speaker, or you see someone who needs to be listened by others, then Mercury visible is something which can help you very much. It's not about intellectual capacity. So if your Mercury is invisible, it doesn't mean that you are stupid, or you don't have valuable ideas. That's not the case. It means that if Mercury is visible, or during the time when Mercury is visible, this is the time when you can materialize easily your ideas, or at least easier than in the other cases.
And you're being heard as well by what you're trying to say.
Yes. For example, your Mercury is visible according to the green method.
Currently, yeah. But it wasn't before. And to tell you, for years, I felt like when I speak, no one listens.
Yeah.
And now I feel people listen. But yeah, it's so there is a saving grace, because many people, like, I was born with 3 planets invisible, so my life was for many years just kind of invisible. But then they become visible, so everyone has a chance at a certain period in their life to be heard, to manifest their ideas, to manifest, And I can give another example with Mercury. It was my 5th house of children. For many years, I tried to have children and nothing happened. Mercury was invisible for many years. And now, bam, bam, bam.
Yes. That's really unpopular method for predictions. that's why we are offering these personal charts. Basically, you can find everything in this chart for the next 5 years. And I think
that's the only way the Babylonians were predicting. Ancient astrology was only predicting with these methods, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There were no transits or anything like that to look at. Like we kind of make things very complicated for ourselves nowadays for daily transits. Well, yes, they influence
it defines the main tendencies. Yeah, the main tendencies. Let's say you want to find out what will happen or what 2018 will be like for you. Just look at this table. The planets which have, you know, some phases will show you the overall tendencies. In your case, we found that you have a Saturn phase. Well, there will be some responsibilities for you. This is something you can expect, and actually it's totally fine. The moon has phases. You can, you know, achieve some results in the area of family. We know the great stuff that are happening to you very soon. Also about home. And, you know, you can analyze if there are no phases. Well, it might be like this year is not so important. You know, there are not so drastic changes in your life. Mm-hmm. You see, it's just like the starting point, but it gives you the general picture, which is very, very important.
Yes. Wonderful. Okay, have you seen, for example, if someone's, say, 7th Lord of Venus goes invisible, that they get divorced or something like that? That it's possible.
If Venus becomes invisible?
For the 7th Lord.
Yeah, it could be like, you know, you are not so happy with your relationship, maybe. Sometimes there might be temporary separations for different reasons, not sometimes divorces, sometimes someone needs to travel, maybe, whatever. But this is, and I have been for a few years in this period when my Venus was invisible and the ruler of my 7th house was invisible. That's an extremely difficult period for having a relationship.
Oh, it's not happening from anywhere.
Yeah, it's just, and you know, you have to just be prepared for that. And maybe during this time you can work on an inner level, maybe, you know, to set free from the past, to prepare yourself for the new beginning, because there is always a new beginning coming.
Oh, my Venus was invisible till 24 or 5. I never had a good relationship till then.
Yeah.
For 25 years it was invisible. You know, so and then around 24 it became visible, and it was like bam, bam, bam.
Yes, the periods when the planet becomes visible, they can be extremely intense. So you can expect something to happen around this time. Let's say Venus becomes visible for you in February, let's say. Very close to this period, something might happen. And the most important is that after that, the whole period changes. I mean, the tendencies for the whole period. So
for many years.
For many years, yeah, until the next phase comes.
If it's the green method, which is the most important.
About all of the methods, even in the blue one,
it's a few years.
Yes. They are different, you know. In some cases it could be 1-2 years. In other cases it could be longer. It's really personal. It depends.
Thank you. I no longer have questions, so you can take everyone else's questions.
Yes. Okay, so Annabelle says, how can we go back? As I told you, I have a specific software which I'm using, so unfortunately I cannot, there is no source where you can find this information. It's not like the ephemeris which you can find online and just calculate from them. It's not there. Virginia, I was wondering about what the planets were doing in 2017 too. As I told you, this is about the future, so 5 years from now. And at the very beginning, you will find this chart where you will understand the current status of the planets. And if there are no phases in the boxes, it just means that nothing is happening with these planets. They are like they were at the starting point of the period. Would Saturn be more important for career or the ruler of the 10th house? In this situation, well, I would say it depends on what your career is. If it is something which is ruled by Saturn, let's say you're working for the government or in the construction business or in some kind of organization, then Saturn is more important because your work is, associated with Saturn. If your work is, let's say, you work in trading or sales, your work is more like a Mercury area. So in that case, I would say that the ruler of 10th house will be more important.
Sorry, just you're speaking about that, and it came to me that even if the ruler of your 10th house is invisible, which is your career, but you say in fashion and Venus is visible, you can still have success in fashion. If the planet that is associated with your career is visible, just like you gave example for Saturn.
Yes, it could be important, or maybe, let's say, if you're a teacher or someone, education, Jupiter could be important for you in that case.
Fantastic. So there is always a way to compensate if at least one, the planets that naturally signifies your career is visible, or at least the 10th house ruler is visible. One of the two can still help you. And when both are visible, well, it's all go green.
Yes. Someone asks what C and G means. This is a conjunction. This is the conjunction between the sun and the planet which you're analyzing. It means that you can achieve active in this area of your life. Let's say that you have a conjunction between Mars and the sun. You can be really active, and you can, for example, for physical exercise is something that you're doing on your own. Or in Lada's case, like Mars is ruling her 10th house, this is the time when she can prepare some career projects, some business projects. Some ideas might come up. So, it's like the energy comes from within you. And you can have, of course, conjunctions between and Jupiter and Saturn and Venus as well. So it's activeness in the areas which are related to this planet. Somebody says, can we order another one later? Of course, you can always send me an email and I will explain, of course. Yes, of course, Tira. You're welcome, guys. Interesting question. Maya asks, do we also watch the planets in the house, for example, in the what's going on? Let's say Mercury and Jupiter are in the 7th house, are invisible. I don't think so. I think that are more, the houses which are ruled by the planets are more important. So if you want to analyze the area of relationships, analyze the ruler of your 7th house. In that case, if Mercury is invisible in your 7th house, it's not influencing the area of relationships, it's influencing the houses which are ruled by your Mercury. Another question, should we compare the progressed chart to the natal chart, or we just check how it is in the progressed? It's not like the overlays which we are making with, with the progressed sun and the progressed moon, in the traditional way. So you're kind of, analyzing it separately. You can look in your birth chart, to find out which houses are ruled by the planet, but then you only need to analyze what's happening in the progressions. Okay, another one. My Sagittarius covers part of 10th house, all of 11th, and part of 12th. Should I look at all 3 houses for Jupiter visibility? No. You look only in the house which is ruled by your Jupiter. So in this case, part of 12th, it should be, Jupiter should rule your 11th and 12th house. It means that you have an interception in the other houses somewhere. So you only check, the cusps which are ruled by the house, and you can find that information at the very beginning of the chart which I sent you. Next to each of the houses, you will find which planet is ruling this house. So just check the planets which are ruling your 10th, 11th, and 12th. As far as I understand, Mercury is ruling your 11th and 12th house. And 10th house probably should be ruled by your Venus. I'm not sure if you're Gemini or Virgo. Okay. If the planet is visible, but there are no phases in the box, what does this mean? It means that this whole period is like there are no clouds coming in your life. You can materialize things, you can be successful, things are just easier for you, and it doesn't change during this 5-year period. That's what it means. Then we have the same question about the rulership. I think I already answered that. Very interesting question. What about the visibility or not of the rulers of our planets? For example, the ruler of our Sun or the ruler of Venus. This is a more in-depth analysis. On certain level, maybe it may have some kind of impact. For example, especially I would say if you have a stellium in certain sign. Let's say I have a stellium in Capricorn, so the ruler Saturn is extremely important. If you want to go really in depth, you may try to work with that. Maybe you will find some answers, especially if there are many planets in certain sign. As I said, stellium or even more planets, then the visibility of the ruler may affect them, not so strongly as the planets themselves, but it might have some kind of influence. Annabelle asks, Annabelle, you need to check first of all the table with the rows with the 3 colors. And this is the starting point, as I said. So if the planets there are visible and nothing is happening during the years, it means that the planets will remain visible. If you want to start a company, I would always check your 6th and 10th house. And also, it depends on the type of the activity. Let's say, of course, if it is trading and your Mercury is invisible, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't start it. You need to find out something else which will help you. For example, just an example, if you're trading with fashion or clothes, then watch the phases of your Venus. It will help you to find the positive times, but always check the ruler of 6th and 10th house. Okay. Laura asks about the EL in red. It means that Mars will become invisible. So it means that after that, it might be a more difficult period for you in terms of relationships. So before that, it's the more positive time for you. If somebody asks about the green phases, in some cases they may not become visible during our whole life, especially if we are talking about Mars, for example. In some cases, even Venus. As you saw in the case of Lada, her Mars is invisible in the birth chart, and it's still not visible. So in some cases, it could be, it may not become visible at all, and that's why you need to analyze the other methods. So if in the blue it becomes visible or it is already visible, this is the best time for you. About the invisible phase of Mars. The invisible phase of Mars can be, so it could be for, let's say, 2 months or even more. So in some cases, if you are born at the very beginning of the invisible phase, according to the green method, which is 1 day after of your life equals 1 year, it may not become visible, or it might become visible when you are, later at your life. What is the maximum period? You mean Azurina, sorry. What is the maximum period Mercury can stay invisible in anybody's chart? You mean according to one method, I guess. In some cases, it could be for a very long time. It could be for a very long time, for years. And as I told you here, it's not like, it's predictable like with the moon. With the moon, you know that once in 28 years, you have a progressed moon according to the green method. And this is true for all of us. But for Mercury, as I showed you, the cycle is completely different. And in some cases, it could, become visible. Then for some time, it's invisible. In other cases, it may not be visible for a very long time, like years. So you can't really use the progressions or solar arc planets because basically they go clockwise. And I'm not sure that I understand this question. I'm sorry, Marta. That doesn't show on the chart that we now have. I'm not sure that I understand you. You mean Annabelle, do you have your chart? Okay, so are they other? Yes, you have it. Okay, so you will find, as I showed you, the one with the 3 rows, you will find actually where you're starting from, about each of the planets, and according to the 3 methods, you will find that in the chart. Is it clear, or do you want me to show it again on Lada's chart where it is exactly? What would be the ruler of energetic treatments or astrology, the ancient rulers? Jupiter. Jupiter is very important for opening up our minds, but in the ancient times, when there were no Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the planet which was related to spirituality was Saturn. It might be a surprise, I know. For some, it might sound strange, but Saturn and Capricorn as a sign on a high level, I mean, people who are evolved, who are, their souls are on a different level, they can be very spiritual. I know sometimes it sounds strange, but Saturn can be a very spiritual planet as well. Annabelle says there is no green on the chart. It means that nothing will change. So that's good news. It means that no planets are going to become invisible. If there is if something is happening in this 5-year period, you will find that in the chart. If there is nothing in green, it means that everything remains the same. The planets won't become invisible. That's why you won't find it. It's not like I have forgotten, or if you have empty column, it doesn't mean that I have forgotten to calculate your phases. It means that nothing is changing. Things are as they find them in the first table. There are points over the next 5 years where there is blue that says invisible. Yes, if it says invisible, after that it will be invisible until you find the visible phase. If there is no such phase, it means that by the end of 2022 this planet will still be invisible for you. Do countries and businesses have the same heliacal phases? You mean their horoscope? I would say yes. These charts, they are also, they are also influenced by the same indications. So that's why, for example, if you're willing to start a business which is related to, let's say, communications or trading or sales, you really want to find Mercury visible. Or if it's something related to fashion, you should avoid the time when Venus is invisible. It's much more positive if your Venus is visible. So yeah, for business also. AR, OPP, and CR. This is one period which is divided on 3 smaller parts. So this is the culmination. As I said, you can find it for Saturn and Jupiter and Mars. And this is the time when you can achieve material results. It could be in your career and work, or in the houses which are ruled by Saturn. Let's say Saturn rules your 9th house. In the area of education, you can achieve success, for example. The Sidereal tropical. I haven't worked with that. I use only the tropical zodiac, so I really can't help you with that.
I can answer this question. It doesn't matter what zodiac sign, what you're using. When a planet is invisible, it will be invisible no matter what zodiac you use. It's just gonna rule different houses. The sidereal, say if your 7th house is in Virgo, in tropical, in sidereal, it will be in Leo. So that's what changes. And it depends on your belief system, which one works, For us, we use tropical and it works amazing. You saw the example with my career, Mars rules career, and the year it became visible. For the first time ever, I started a career. Before that, all my life, I didn't have a career. I had jobs, but not vocational success, you know. So
Yeah.
tropical does work amazing, specifically for for real events in life, because the tropical zodiac reflects, it's the local earth zodiac. The sidereal is constellations that influence big ages, like the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces, big historical ages. But for the personal life of the person and personal manifestation and practical material manifestations, tropical works amazing, because it's based on the solstices and equinoxes, the actual observable seasons, basically here on Earth, and that's why it works so well.
Yeah, that's interesting as well. Marta, yes, I understood now your question. No, what I meant was that it's only how it looks on my chart, you know, how it moves, how it's presented. It doesn't mean that literally they're moving backwards. So like the retrograde, let's say. It's not what I meant. It's just how it's visualized on the chart. That was my point.
And I wanted to mention for people, because the first method is using progressions, isn't it? The green method.
Yes.
It's one
the
day
secondary
equals,
progression.
yes. So people that want to, if you want to calculate that, if you understand a little bit from ephemerides, and you can read the ephemerides, you can go to the year you are born, and you can check, for example, when, if you can check on Google for that year when, in astronomical journals, I think there are such journals online that can say the year, say you're born 1985, and you can check, say they can say Venus became visible in the evening sky for the first time in 5th of March, on the 7th of February. So it means that 5th of March is what, like, or 5th of January, say you're born on the 5th of February and Venus becomes visible on the 5th of March, about 29 days later or 30 days later. Around the age of 30, Venus will become visible for you. Isn't it something? It's, you can check that, at least the green method, you can try and calculate it for yourself. If you see, if you find for the year when planets become visible and invisible, and you count each day as 1 year of your life, accounting from your birthday till the day that it becomes visible according to the astronomical journal. There are such astronomy tables I found sometimes. They're records when a planet becomes, astronomers observe them and they say, oh, Venus becomes invisible, Jupiter becomes invisible. And yeah, you can watch for the next 90 days after your birthday, because usually we live till 90 years or 80 years. 80 days after your birthday will show you the green method. If something becomes 27 days after your birthday invisible or visible like a planet, it means that on your 27th year of age, this planet becomes visible and invisible. And then say on the 56th year of your life, it becomes invisible again or visible. Again, it means that on the 56th day after your birthday, it becomes invisible. It means that at the 56th year of age, it becomes invisible. So the green method, at least, you can go back and check the years. While the red and the blue methods, they are more complicated. But yeah, this is how I do it manually. I'll check and I'll try and see which year, when planet became visible and invisible, because I don't have this software. It's called Sumer or Babylonia or something. And I also don't have it. So I'll do such quick manual check. If you understand from that, do check it as well. Yeah, it's complicated, but it's not actually so much.
Yes, this is a really advanced technique, you know. This is really in-depth method. It's not like the most popular, which you can find everywhere, but they are really personal and so important. And someone says, what if a planet shows it will be going through an invisible phase in this calendar for 2018? This is the current situation right now. The most important for you is your personal chart, which I have sent you. Then, during the year, during 2018, the planets go visible and invisible, and you can check that as well. But this is more like if you want to start something new. It's not about how you let's say that Venus becomes visible. It doesn't mean that you will have an opportunity for relationship. But if in the personal chart you have a phase of Venus, it's about you and your personal life. So that's the difference. The 2018 calendar, it's generally for the year. So what's happening for all of us, like something like the transits right now. And the other chart is more, your personal chart.
And I wanted to mention something because many people are afraid when they have retrograde planets. And you'll notice that often when a planet is retrograde, actually it's visible. Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, and that is very strong. So if you have it in your birth chart retrograde, actually it means that all your life in the green method, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars will actually stay visible, so that's one positive side of having a retrograde Jupiter, Saturn, or Mars.
Yes, because they are very far away from the sun when these planets are retrograde, so they can be invisible. Yeah, that's the
they might
part.
require more efforts because a retrograde planet kind of, you need to put more efforts to, but it will manifest materially. So that's a compensation,
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Okay.
And also you can have Venus that is retrograde to Mercury, but if they're visible in your birth chart, it's actually, you'd manifest more than someone who has a direct Venus and it's invisible, throughout their life.
Yes, and these things shouldn't scare us, everyone have some challenges in the horoscope, in the heliacal phases, or the retrogradness of the planets, or some difficult aspects. There are no perfect charts. The main idea is to learn how to handle with this and to use it in our advantage. And the more you know yourself, the more you understand yourself, I think the more you can achieve in your life generally. So that's why astrology is so valuable.
Perfect. And someone said that they want more personal examples. Can you use your chart, if you don't mind? I know you're a bit maybe more private with Pisces moon, but maybe to share a story of your chart when the planet became visible and invisible and how it plays out.
Sure. Let me.
So people can see it in real life, how it, like, I gave a few examples with my chart, but
of course,
I believe like you know your chart much better, so you can tell us a few stories of how it worked.
Okay, so this is my chart. Let me see. Okay, so actually I'm not sharing my screen. First I have to share the screen, sorry. Forgot. Okay. Okay, so my Venus is visible in my chart, and this is basically the year when I got married, 2010. And you can see that Venus here is in the evening phase. Basically, it became visible during this time. And this is the year when I got married. So this is a practical example.
So it's like a clockwork. Exactly when Venus is in phase,
yes,
you get married.
Yes, exactly. During this time, let me check about Jupiter. Let me check about Let me just check on Mars. I think that Mars also had some. Okay, and here you can see Mars also became visible during this time. So when I got married, I have phases of Mars and Venus. Mars is the ruler of my fifth house. And by the way, I had my child during the same time.
So you were pregnant, fifth house.
Yes. So you see, this year I have a phase of the ruler of my fifth house, and I have a phase of Venus. So I got married and I had a child.
Wow. Literally, that's like, it's much better than transits. This method actually.
Yes. Yes, very, very interesting. In some, and people shouldn't, get scared if, the planets are invisible, because it means that this is the ending phase, and at some point they will become visible, and this is the new beginning coming.
So they kind of have to recharge in regards to that planet to generate new knowledge, to prepare, like you said, and then they emerge again and they come with new ideas, so with new beginning in that life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So very interesting. It might take some time, to understand that, and 5 years is a very long period, but things might change for some of us, for others, it's completely different.
You should create a software that calculates this, and like a report, we should create that.
Yeah, it could be interesting, but I'm not really sure. Maybe we need to consult with some IT specialists. It would be really interesting.
Yes, because this doesn't exist anywhere. There are hundreds of reports that calculate transits and whatnot, but there's no kind of automated report that calculates these phases, and people can see how correct they are. It's like on the clockwork. When the planet is in phase, something important connected to this planet happens in your life. And this can be a way to prove astrology back to the unbelieving.
Yeah. Actually, we showed you your chart and my chart. When such important life events happen, usually there is some kind of phase around this time.
Yeah, because I'm sure people would want to see 20 years ahead or 20 years back.
I'm not sure that people would be interested. Well, 20 years is a very long time. Yeah, I'm not sure that this is a very good idea. Not because of the work to calculate that, more because, it's like, well, maybe it depends. Everyone can take their own decision. So, yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah.
My Mercury and Jupiter ruler of my third, 6th, 9th, 12th,
yeah, that's
invisible now.
Okay, but the ruler of your 10th house could be visible, so it might help you, actually.
So your career can be good, yeah. You might not be traveling so much, 9 and 12, and but your career can still be going well.
And the visibility of the ruler of 12th house, I think it's not so important, because 12th house is not related to, any visible stuff. It's very, more like the unconscious mind and your past, which are things, which you don't need to be visible, actually. So the ruler of 12th house, if it's
12th house, you don't need, it's an internal thing, unless you want the outer manifestation of the 12th house to be out of prison, for example, if you're in prison.
Or maybe secrets to come up on the surface, but not
usually
everyone wants that.
To come on the surface. Zorina says, can I apply the visibility and invisibility to my progress chart? That's what I was explaining, that actually the progress chart is the method in green. And if in your progress chart a planet becomes visible, this means that the green method is visible in the green method. But you don't know in the progress chart when a planet becomes visible unless you check some astronomical journals that describe if the planet is visible at that day of the progress chart, But usually, that's how you. I wanted to say something else, to ask something else. Planets that are, if you want to stop something bad, is there a benefit to having a planet invisible, like a bad habit or something like that?
Very interesting. Maybe if it's about, let's say, the rule, as I said, the ruler of your 12th house, or in that case, it could be positive. But in the other cases, the invisible phase of the planet is the period when you can work on an inner level with this energy. And you can change yourself on the inside. So from that point of view, yeah, you can change your attitude towards yourself, towards some habits maybe. So it could be a good time from that perspective.
Or maybe just when the ruler of the 12th is in some kind of phase, you can make a big change with addictions or something like that.
The ruler of 12th?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it could be. And it's kind of, I think related to separation with the past and overcoming, some unconscious issues. 12th house is, really complicated to understand. Zurina asks, I understood your question, Zurina. I think that no, it's not the way we work with that. Zurina asks about the rulers in the progressed chart. No, it's different. You apply that to your birth chart, and the ruler of the house is there.
Yeah, in the progress, you can just see when the planet is far enough. So you can see when progress moon will be close to progress sun. That means the moon is invisible. It's a new moon. And it means that you're in a preparation stage for something, And whatever this moon rules in your birth chart, this thing will go quiet in your life, or you'll be like retreating a bit from the active manifestation of that thing. Say, if the moon rules your 7th house and in your progress chart it's a new moon phase, so kind of 30 degrees before the progress sun, 30 degrees after the progress sun, for about 5 years almost, it can indicate that you will be possibly, relationship might be quiet in some way.
Yeah. And another advice is always to check the ruler of your ascendant. It will be very important.
Maybe for your health, particularly.
For everything, yeah, including the health, but basically for everything that you want to do on your own. For example, my ruler is the moon, and I always, pay attention on this. So let's say that, if you're the ruler of your ascendant is Saturn, then the changes will come very rare. If it's the moon, the changes, the changes come quite often. If it's Leo, if the sun is ruling your ascendant, from that perspective, you are lucky because the ruler of your ascendant will always be visible.
Wow. Yes, that's why they say Leo is such a lucky sign. The sun never goes invisible.
Yes.
Someone says, I live in a place that I hate and have been trying to move but couldn't so far. I won't be able to move as Mercury and Jupiter in invisible, and they ruled my 3rd, 9th, and 12th houses.
Check the ruler of your 4th house. Yeah.
Moving is place of living.
Yeah, it's the place where you are living.
Or like the moon being in
and
phase.
Property. Yeah, this could be the helpful period. And Ellie, I remembered your chart. It was very impressive. You are one of those lucky people who have all of the planets visible in their horoscope, which is, exceptional.
Yeah, it's very rare. But they might go invisible after that.
We all go through these phases. It's impossible that during your whole life everything will be still visible. But these are just like the life cycles. It comes and goes. But in this way, you know when exactly it will happen. Okay. So do we have some other questions? Okay, so yeah, I think it was the most important. Again, guys, if you don't have your personal charts, you have them during the week, or if you haven't sent me your details, please send it to my email, stoichkova@gmail.com, or you can use even the form from Lada's website and send me the details personally.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and if you have questions, you can email Marina. Maybe you can ask, when can I get money from my ex-husband? When is he gonna pay me? The ruler of my eighth house is invisible. Well, that you have to look at the ruler of the eighth house, you know, for different questions like that, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, if that's all,
I think it was the most important. Yeah.
perfect. Thank you so much. This was Heliacal Phases with Marina. Thank you for all the hard work. I know that for the past 20 days, all you've been doing is calculating charts.
Yeah.
And you have another 30 to calculate, probably.
Yeah, during this week, I have so many things, but as I promised
Your Mercury
everyone,
must be visible.
Yeah, it is. By the way, it is according to the green method. It is. So yeah, good time for. If you have some problems with the Word format, please send me an email. Again, I will make a PDF and show you and send it to you. It looks like it works better.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Marina. Have a lovely Sunday. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And it was very insightful, very interesting. Maybe we'll work on creating a computer-generated report for, you know, for these phases. So we'll see.
Yeah, it could be helpful.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. And Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays in advance.
Yeah, bye.